Hi, this is Frank Tyndall. It's March the 12th, 2012. I'd like to show you how the tracker analysis is going for the period to the 20th of February 2012. I'll use the McAllister demonstration farm as an example. There are 16 farms in this particular analysis. All these farms are from the McAllister Irrigation District. These farms are ranked with the highest margins on the left hand side and the lowest margins on the right hand side. You can see that the McAllister demonstration farm has a cow margin of $5.92, meaning that each cow is returning after all her feed costs of $5.92 per day. This is worked out by subtracting her feed costs of $3.76 from her milk income of $9.67. That's where the $5.92 comes from. First of all, let's look at the milk income. That obviously comes from the milk price of $5.36 multiplied by the actual milk solids that the cows are producing at the moment per day, which is 1.8 milk solids. The cows are doing 25 litres. The feed costs are subtracted from the milk income, and the feed costs amount to $3.76. Now that's made up of two major parts. First of all, the 7.9 kilograms of purchase feed costing $327 a tonne, and the 9.3 kilograms of pasture that's being eaten per day per cow, which costs $126 a tonne. The $126 a tonne is calculated from all the inputs that are put into the pasture at the time, from irrigation water to nitrogen to phosphorus, potassium, any pasture renovation, any topping. And once all those amounts are added up in the system, they amount to $4.62 spent per hectare per day on grass growing. So when that is divided by the 37 kilograms of grass being consumed per hectare per day, we get a price of $126 a tonne. So you can see the pasture, the purchase feed are added together to get a total feed cost of $3.76. And once again, that's subtracted from the milk income, giving a margin of $5.92. Now you can look across all the other margins. There are some margins above $6. There's a few margins that are in the high fives, and there's a couple of margins down here at only $4. Back to the MDF column, this margin per hectare is calculated by multiplying the cow margin that each cow is making by the stocking rate. So if you have a higher stocking rate and a very good margin, you will be getting a very good margin per hectare. Now you can notice the demo farm's got a margin per hectare of $23.50, and there's a farm up here with a margin per hectare of $31, so they're doing extremely well. They've got a very high stocking rate of 4.6. They're harvesting quite a bit of grass, 46 kilograms of dry matter per hectare per day, and their cows are milking very, very well at 1.93 milk solids, or 26.7 litres. The ranking for this sheet is given equal weighting to this cow margin and this hectare margin. So on the left hand side are the highest margins, and on the right hand side the lowest. You'll notice that these two rows, milk solids per cow and pasture consumption per hectare, are large font and bold. That's because they are the two big drivers of the margin down the bottom. You'll notice that the higher pasture consumptions are on the left hand side compared to the lower pasture consumptions on the right hand side. And also the higher milk production per cow is on the left hand side, and the lower milk production per cow is on the right hand side. They jump around a little bit because the different calculations, it doesn't necessarily go hand in hand, but it depends on the price of the feed and the price of all the inputs and so on. But the tracker is clearly showing that the driver of margins is, and always has been, pasture consumption, but it is also milk solids per cow, because that gets efficient use of the feed. Now let me go to another tab on the tracker, which is your graphs. Before we leave this sheet, this is a sheet of all the farms and the margins with the farms ranked for the highest margin. This sheet is a sheet of your farm only with a particular issue graphed for 3 years in a row. Now the blue line is this year, the red line is last year, and the green line is the year before. And this particular graph is pasture consumption. It says grazed grass and crop and anything consumed per milking hectare per day. You'll notice at the moment that the McAllister Demo Farm is a little bit behind other years, but it is holding now and is starting to increase a little bit. We've had some very, very wet weather recently, up to 5 inches of rain, and so that hasn't made things particularly easy to graze the grass off, but because of the rain things are starting to pick up, so hopefully now we will climb up to here. So this is one of the main drivers of feed margin, which is the grazed grass consumption per milking hectare per day. You'll notice that the Demo Farm is sitting on about 37. Just as a bit of an idea, if you put your cursor, when you get your tracker report, on one of the dots, you will see that it shows you the value of that dot in a little window that pops up. I want to show you another couple of graphs. There are 47 graphs in this particular set, and you don't have to look at them all, but there's something to be learnt from each of them. But I'm just showing you two today, the previous one, which was the pasture consumption, and this one, which is the milk solids per cow per day. And you'll see we have been travelling quite well, but we've had a bit of a crash recently since the rain. So that set of graphs, which is on the tab Your Graphs down the bottom, that's for your farm only. Now another set of graphs, which are the group graphs on that tab down there, show you all the farms for different aspects. For example, this particular one we'll look at here, we'll look at pasture consumption. No, there are a number of graphs here, but I'm just trying to find there's the pasture consumption one. So these graphs have a top line, which is the farm that is achieving the highest level in that particular aspect. In this case it's pasture consumption, and the red line, which is achieving the lowest, and then the black line, which will be your farm. In this case it's the McAllister Demonstration Farm. So you can see the Demo Farm is a fair way in front of the lowest pasture consumption, but it isn't necessarily hitting the highest pasture consumption all the time. It does fairly well most of the time, but not always. So there's a number of graphs here that show you your comparison over a period of 2 years, how you compare with the other farmers in the group for these major indicators. There's a number of other graphs and tables and graphs which you can look at, but they contain a lot of the information which you can look at your leisure. But I'm back to the first graph, the first table, and this is the one that the tracker usually opens on, and it just simply ranks your margin with all the other farms. You'll notice that the farms are anonymous up the top, they're just simply numbers, but if you are in a group where you are naming every farm, you'll see the farm's name here. So that's the tracker for the time. The Demo Farm has got a little bit of improvement to make. One thing to watch a bit carefully is that some of these farms are autumn calving farms, and the Demo Farm is a spring calving farm, so these cows are in quite late lactation, but by the same token, the Demo Farm could lift its pasture consumption a little bit.